In this corner, the Disney Store exclusive Marvel Select HULKBUSTER by Diamond. And in this corner, the all-new Marvel Legends 85 Years HULKBUSTER by Hasbro. Which HULKBUSTER is best for your collection? Place your bets and stick around. It's time for another Versus. Welcome to 5 Points of Articulation. For the purpose of this video, I'm sticking to comic book designs. That said, I will not be including the Toy Biz version. Starting with the packaging, we've got a couple of different styles. Marvel Select is on a big giant blister card. Based on the weight of this thing, the glue's definitely starting to give out. Naturally, there's no fear of that happening with Legends, as it comes in a collector-friendly window box. Hasbro, of course, has that 85-year seal of approval. The only special seal on Marvel Select is that it's a Disney Store exclusive. In a surprise turn, both figures' names are on their sides, with comic art on their spines. Hey, Tony, get out of the way! But don't worry, we do see more of that picture on the back. We also have a little bio. I will say there is something familiar about this art. Oh yeah, Diamond used it too. On the flip side, Marvel Select just has a big old product shot. Normally, they include extensive bios and credit to the designers and sculptors. Seeing that original price tag is pretty painful, but we'll get there when we get there. Between being more collector-friendly and more informative for packaging, this round goes to Legends. Moving on to presentation, and before we can dig in, there is some small amount of assembly required. Mainly the front piece, the back piece, and these exhausts. Before I click those in place, I do want to bring attention to the sculpted tech details underneath. Could maybe use a bit more paint, but once the shells are on, I'm never going to really see it again. Same thing with the back. Hasbro did not have to go this hard. They made the pegs for the exhausts different shapes so you knew which one went where, and that's kind of nice. But getting the front and back shell on was very frustrating. It's kind of like when you make a bed and you tuck one corner in and the other one pops out, and even then it just keeps coming undone. Not gonna lie, it's starting me out with a bad taste in my mouth, but let's give it a shot. Fully assembled, and Legend stands at 9 inches, or about 22.5 centimeters, while Select is only 8 inches, or about 20.5 centimeters. That's actually pretty fascinating. I say that because Marvel Legends is a 6-inch scale line, whereas Marvel Select is 7-inch, and yet here Legends towers over Select. You'd think it would be the other way around. Beyond that, both companies have done a very impressive job of capturing all the basic details of the design. Both figures have those big honeycomb textured pauldrons, articulation obstructing arm guards, tricep pistons, shoulder pipes and similar back detail, gigantic hands, each one with only 4 fingers like a cartoon character, matching triangle-shaped logos with ridged stomachs and matching weird-shaped cod pieces, silver hips, gold knee pads, shin guards like a spaghetti strainer, and big old boots with ninja toe. Looking at the helmets, and the line work is near identical, the main difference being that Marvel Select is retracted like a turtle. Aside from the obvious size differences between the two, what really separates them is the level of detail and also the finish. The Hasbro figure has a lot more detail. Just look at that subtle texture in the arm guards. You've got all the great techie bits, and all the cables and wires in the legs. Select, by contrast, just has silver balls for the hips. Where Select excels, however, is the color scheme. This figure has been beautifully painted metallic red and gold. Hasbro, on the other hand, is simply cast in a marbleized plastic. And some of that marbleization is pretty rough. As a result, while the Hasbro version is more detailed, it also just looks a bit duller. Leastways as compared to the rich, vibrant Select. In fact, maybe it's just my shiny thing-loving crow brain talking, but for presentation, this round goes to Select. Moving on to Posability, and of course I always have to have a disclaimer about how Diamond is contractually limited in the number of points of articulation a Marvel Select figure can have. The thing is, for a big bulky character like this, that doesn't factor in quite as much as you might think. From the top, and I'm not getting any forward or back whatsoever on Select, and even side to side is really fighting me. I don't know what's in there, but it's definitely not doing much. Hasbro, on the other hand, has the world's tiniest dumbbell and an extra ball joint in the base of the neck. Side to side is no trouble at all. He also gets forward and back. Moving on down, and before we talk about the arms, I do want to address the shoulder pads. Select has a ball joint in theirs. This allows you to move and shift it around. With Legends, it's a softer rubber flap that actually rings around the joint of the shoulder shoulder. This makes it flexible, but also capable of turning, and popping that shell apart in the process. As for the arms themselves, I'm astonished to see that Select can raise his higher. Both figures, however, have bicep swivel, and single-jointed swivel elbows with a 90-degree bend. Both figures have swivel hinge wrists, but looking at the way the fingers are sculpted on the Select, I almost wonder if they were trying to make these articulated too. If they had, that would have been pretty interesting. Moving to the middle, and while both figures have a diaphragm joint, Legends also has a swivel waist. Although it's subtle, Select actually has the slightly better arch back, but I do think that Legends has the slightly better hunch forward. The benefit of the diaphragm, of course, is that both get some side-to-side tilt. The diaphragm also gives them twist, but again, Legends has the waist swivel. And the pieces that keep falling apart! Since the diaphragm gives him twist anyway, I think I would have rather seen a reverse ab crunch just to give him a little extra push. Below the waist in Marvel Select has swivel hinge ball style hips, similar to a shoulder ball. Select can only kick this high, but given the clunkiness of the armor, I get it. Although hard to tell, Legends is slightly higher. I will say Select gets a very impressive split, same with Legends. Moving on down, that swivel ball gives Select a nice thigh turn, Hasbro having a regular old thigh cut, but while Select merely has single jointed swivel knees, Legends has double jointed knees, and just look at that bend. To Diamond's credit, I will say that the swivel makes up for not having a boot cut. That's something Legends does not have. It does, however, have a boot that popped off. Pretty much when I tried bending this knee, it was too sticky, and this is what happened. So kids, don't forget, when your toys fight you, heat them up. Moving all the way down though, and here we have the level of hinge and pivot for Select, and once again I do have to say that Legends has the better range. Even as Select figures go, this one is pretty good, but for posability, this round's gotta go to Legends. Moving on to playability, and in terms of accessories, this is gonna go pretty quickly, mainly because Marvel Select ain't got diddly squat. Legends, by contrast, comes with an extra pair of fists, and yeah, if you're fighting the Incredible Hulk, I'd say you probably need those. Legends also comes with this really cool unhelmeted Tony Stark head. It's been very nicely sculpted and painted, and I do really like the armor tech detail. Thanks to that swappable head, you could technically use the helmet as a prop for figure photography. And yeah, for those wondering, he can look up and down, he's got tilt, and all the way around. If you wanted to put that head on other Iron Man bodies, you could, but I will say that that armor piece around the jaw doesn't quite look natural. Conversely, you could also put a regular Iron Man head up there, it's just that the necks won't match. Fortunately for Select, playability is more than just accessories. It's also about how well your figure plays with others. Depending on your preferred color scheme, I thought I'd bring out both 80 years and AI. If you missed out on the AI, the upcoming Retro Card Secret Wars is pretty much the same, but with roller skates. Similarly, and here we have Ursa Major Wave and retro card versions of the modular armor. Kinda makes me wonder if Hasbro isn't going to end up reissuing this in that classic McDonald's red and yellow. Next up is Extremis and the MCU Mark III armor that it inspired. It's worth noting that Extremis is the other armor that we see on the packaging for the HULKBUSTER. Here we can see just how small the Marvel Select looks when side by side with a fellow Marvel Select Iron Man. When it first came out, I loved this bleeding edge figure, but these days the proportions remind me more of an Aeon Flux character. Lastly, for Iron Man anyway, and for the best one-to-one comparison I have, and here we have Silver Centurion. Based only on Iron Man's, and I gotta say I do like the way that Hasbro scales better. For the most important comparisons though, and here we have the Hulk himself. Here we have the old Toy Biz face-off version, which I know a lot of you still love. For an MCU comparison though, and here is the Smart Hulk Build-A-Figure. If this video does well enough, and enough of you guys demand it, I may invest in some MCU HULKBUSTERs as well. On to the main events though, and here we have the Marvel Legends 80 years version. Side by side, Select might be a little bit smaller, but they still look pretty good. That said, and this looks like something that could actually bust him. Also, if you're leaning more towards the 20th anniversary Hulk, it's the exact same figure, just in darker colors with a different head. For the grand finale though, and here we have the Marvel Select Rampaging Hulk absolutely dwarfing the Marvel Select HULKBUSTER. If Select is your favorite Hulk, then Hasbro is your best bet. Even though this has all pretty much just been relative scale comparisons, for our tried and true relative scale comparison, here's Pete the Spidey and the Spectacular Spider-Man, and as always, here are the HULKBUSTER Iron Men with Stealth Iron Man. Okay, hear me out. Stealth
HULKBUSTer. For what? Fighting half a Hulk?
Admittedly, the Marvel Select figure does scale fairly well with a bunch of different figures. Legends just happens to scale better with more. Most importantly, both Legends and Select versions of the big green guy himself. He also benefits from having accessories. Just be warned about the torso armor's propensity for popping off. For playability, this round also goes to Legends. This leaves us with nothing left to discuss but the price. If you recall from packaging, when it first came out, the Select version retailed for $25, the current price of a regular Marvel Legend. These days and on the aftermarket, it averages for about $50 new in box or $30 to $40 loose. Legends is new and retails for $60. Don't get me wrong, it's a fun figure and definitely has a lot going for it, but $60 does feel a bit steep. If all you want's a nice looking HULKBUSTer, that won't bust your wallet. For price, this round goes to Select, but the battle goes to Legends, 3-2. For more Iron Man competitions, check out one of these, and until next time, play nice and have fun.